Zoals mentioned in deze video ga ik het hebben over de teachings of Lord Kapila, the son of Devahūti, boek geschreven door founder Acharya van the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, His Divine Grace Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The purpose of Lord Kapila's advent: peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and righteousness. Kapila Deva is an incarnation of the Supreme Person, Krishna, the Transcendental Master and Supreme Yogi. How to understand the Lord's activities? In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together, these comprise my separated material energies. Sri Krishna is the controller of the entire universe. The Supreme Lord is more anxious to give us education and enlightenment than we are to receive them. He gives us this literature, his devotees, and the parampara system, but it is up to us to take advantage of these. The Krishna consciousness movement is intended to give society the proper understanding of the absolute truth. Approaching a bona fide guru. If one actually wants to understand spiritual life and knowledge, one has to approach a guru. The word guru means heavy with knowledge. And what is that knowledge? Tad vijnana. That heaviness is Brahmanistha. One does not approach the spiritual master with a challenging spirit. One should also be inquisitive to understand the spiritual science. It is not that one considers himself superior to the guru. One must first find a guru to whom one can surrender, and if this is not possible, one shouldn't waste his time. By surrendering to the proper person, one can very quickly come to understand transcendental knowledge. Lord Kapila takes charge of his mother Devahūti. There are different siddhis or yogic perfections, anemia, leukemia, prapti, and so on, and whatever yogis choose to do, they can do. The only son of Kardamama Muni was Kapila Deva. This Kapila Deva was one of the Mahajanas. The word Mahajan means authority, and according to Vedic Shastras, there are 12 authorities. Mahabharata is called the fifth Veda. The four preceding Vedas are the Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. On the bank of the Bindu Sarovara lake, Kapila Deva personally expounded Sankhya philosophy to his mother Devahūti, just as Krishna personally expounded the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to his friend Arjuna. Our philosophy is not wide. It is full of variety and transcendental bliss. Devahūti desires transcendental knowledge. Devahūti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses, for because of this, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Although Kapila Deva is her son, Devahūti does not hesitate to take instructions from him. She does not say, oh, he is my son. What can he tell me? I am his mother and I shall instruct him. Instruction has to be taken from one who is in knowledge. It doesn't matter what his position is, one should simply learn from one who knows. Knowledge also begins by understanding the threefold miseries of the material world. We are suffering from miseries caused by other living entities and acts of nature, as well as from miseries arising from the body and mind themselves. Lord Kapila begins to explain self-realization. Yoga is the Sanskrit word meaning connection, and Viyoga means disconnection. People are in darkness and they have to be enlightened. There are 8.4 million species of life, and all of these arise from one's association with the modes of nature. Bhakti Yoga, the supreme yoga system. One must be very eager to hear, for spiritual life begins with hearing. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that we should always keep in mind the four miserable conditions. These are birth, old age, disease, and death. When we are able to put an end to this, we are liberated. Generally, we experience that people are primarily interested in seeing Krishna, but why is the emphasis on seeing? Let us hear about him. We must come with a little faith, and as we hear, that faith will increase. If one is attached to illicit relations, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, he should know that he is not making progress. Purifying the mind for self-realization. Our mind is our friend and our mind is our enemy. If it is cleansed, it is a friend, and if it is dirty, we contact material diseases. If we keep ourselves clean, pure, we will not be contaminated. Human life is meant for purification. In this age, people take pleasure in committing all kinds of sins. They are completely in the mode of darkness, just like the animals they slaughter. When we can understand that we are not the body, that is the beginning of self-realization. Spiritual attachment and material detachment. This body is composed of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. A living entity by constitution has the propensity to be attached to something. This must be utilized for the best purpose. From Bhagavad Gita, we learn that death is not really natural for us. It is artificially imposed upon us, and we have to become deathless again. That is the perfection of human life. The symptoms of a sadhu. A sadhu is a devotee of the Lord. His concern, therefore, is to enlighten people in devotional service. That is his mercy. Enemies arise due to man's envious nature. Everyone in the material world is suffering in some way or another. If one simply tries to put an end to attachment, he will become mad. Something must be given in the place of attachment. For instance, we tell our disciples to stop eating meat, but how is this meat eating stopped? In the place of meat, we are supplying palatable things. In this way, detachment is possible. First of all, nullify the inferior attachment and then supply a better attachment. Association with the Supreme Lord through hearing. We have to reduce our tendency for sense gratification and increase our devotional activities. When we come to the understanding that we are actually no one's servant but Krishna's, we attain self-realization. We must come to this understanding not by sentiment but by real knowledge. Perfect knowledge through surrender. Vedanta philosophy is not meant for an ordinary person, nor even for an ordinary learned person. It requires great knowledge of Sanskrit and philosophy. Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita that we should search out a guru. The first guru is Sri Krishna himself, and whoever represents Sri Krishna is also a guru. Vedic education means taking care of the soul. Presently, the soul is engaged, embodied, entangled in material affairs. The soul is suffering, and it is to our benefit to rescue him from these material clutches. This is real education. The soul is ever existing. If one is interested in advancing and chanting Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises that one be humbler than the grass and more tolerant than the trees. One should not be very proud of his intelligence but should give respect to others. We should not try to understand Krishna by our small knowledge. Since we are imperfect, how can we speculate on Krishna? Another name for Krishna is Ajita. No one can conquer Krishna, but Krishna can be conquered by his devotee. Bhakti as ultimate liberation. Sri Maitreya said, after hearing his mother's statement, Kapila could understand her purpose and he became compassionate toward her because of having been born from her body. He then described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization as received by disciplic succession. The first step is Karma Yoga, and then Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga. But the ultimate is Bhakti Yoga. It is not possible to become desireless, but it is possible to give up material desires. Meditation on the Lord's transcendental forms. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna 5,000 years ago, and if we read it today, we will still find that it is fresh. Lord Chaitanya recommended 5 important processes in the discharge of devotional service. 1. To chant the holy name of the Lord. 2. To associate with devotees and serve them as far as possible. 3. To hear Srimad Bhagavatam. 4. To see the decorated temple and the deity, and, if possible, 5. To live in a place like Vrindavana or Mathura. pure devotees' spiritual opulences. When you hold something precious in your hand, you are very careful, and similarly, Krishna holds the devotee and takes care of him. Our attempt to speculate about God is very much like this. If we want to understand God, we have to try to understand from God himself. We may have a neighbor who is very wealthy, influential, wise, strong, and beautiful, and we may speculate about his opulence, but if we make friends with him, we can understand his position by listening to him speak about himself. God cannot be subject to our imagination. Our imagination is limited, and our senses are imperfect. The process of Bhakti Marga is the process of submission. There is no question of subjecting God to our imagination. We simply have to become very humble and submissive and pray to Krishna sincerely. Krishna, it is not possible for me to know you. Kindly explain how it is I can know you, and then it will be possible. This is the way Arjuna approached Krishna in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We can see that if someone has no object of love, he generally directs his love to a pet animal like a cat or a dog. Thus, the eternal propensity for love in all living entities is always searching for a place to reside. Taking shelter of Krishna, the Supreme Controller. It is indicated that the cycle of birth and death cannot be stopped unless one is a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. Devotional service, the final perfection. One who wants to be liberated from the entanglement of this material world and go back home, back to Godhead, is actually a mystic yogi. If we study the history of the world, we see that it is simply a history of struggle. Mankind attempts to relieve its miserable condition, but it simply brings about another miserable condition. As we try to overcome one problem, another problem arises. Our determination to renounce our association with this material world is called mukti. Mukti means coming to the spiritual platform. Since we belong to the spiritual atmosphere, it is impossible for us to be happy in the material atmosphere. If a land animal is placed in water, he will simply struggle for existence despite being an expert swimmer. We have come into this material world to gratify our senses, but our attempts will never be successful. If we actually want to attain a state beyond fear, we have to accept this Bhakti Yoga process enunciated by Lord Kapila Deva. There are innumerable forms of God: Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, Krishna, Kapila Deva, Balarama, and so on. Unless one is purified, one cannot understand God. There are many contaminations within the heart, and the people in this age are engaged in many sinful activities, illicit relations, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. The whole world is revolving about these things, yet despite this, we have to spread this Krishna consciousness movement. There may be many obstacles, but they can all be transcended by Krishna's mercy. We only have to be determined in our devotion. The rest will follow. This is the essence of Lord Kapila's instructions to his mother.